Hey, welcome back to my channel. My name's Claire and today I am taking you through what I read this week. So I listened to 5 books. All of them are audiobooks that I listened to on the Libby app. Libby is a free app that you just basically enter your library card number, so you do need to have a library card, and you're able to access all of your library's catalog in terms of ebooks, audiobooks, all of that for free. This isn't sponsored or anything, but until I found out about it, I was paying for Audible, which is much more expensive. So I definitely recommend checking out Libby if you haven't already and you're looking for a free option to listen to audiobooks or to get ebooks, and you're able to connect the ebooks directly to your Kindle account so that you can actually read it on your Kindle, which is pretty cool. So this week I went through 5 books, so I'm just going to go through them one by one, and as always I'll put in the screenshot where you can see the cover, the author name, the title, and my rating for the books. So the first book I read this week is called Shady Hollow, and it's by Juno Black. So I gave this one 4 stars. This was just a really sweet little mystery book, but all of the characters were actually animals, so it was just like a really cute story. The reporter who is doing a lot of the investigation is a fox called Vera Vixen, and a lot of the story follows her and her journey in trying to figure out who murdered this toad that was found dead in the pond. And it's really cute because it kind of uses the stereotypes of different animals. So the main police officers are bears. The friend of Vera Vixen that owns a bookshop is a raven, and she's the one that's helping her kind of figure everything out. And then the culprit of who they're suspecting is a raccoon, just because it's like a very criminal kind of animal in terms of theft and all of that. So I just thought it was a really sweet book. It is the first book of a series, so I'm still deciding if I'll pick up the rest of the series, but I did really enjoy this kind of storytelling and the way that the town was set up, and just all of the different animals kind of living together and having those stereotypes, but still being kind of similar to people in terms of different characteristics and what they do and all of that. So that's a really sweet book if you're looking for like an easy read. It's a little bit of a mystery, kind of like a cozy mystery vibe. The second book that I read is called In the Long Run, and it's by Haley Cass. I gave this one 3 stars. I did enjoy it. It's essentially a story where these 2 women, Taylor and Brooke, that grew up together. So Brooke is best friends with Taylor's brother. And they grew up together, and essentially their paths cross in San Diego when Brooke is there for a work conference. And they have a little bit of a romantic entangle, and then Taylor winds up moving back to their hometown for a little while, just for some family stuff, and it's really going through that romance as that's building, and kind of coming to terms with the emotions that they have for each other, and if each other feels the same way that they do, and just really the development of that kind of romantic relationship that they have, and kind of navigating the different family dynamics that they each had with like how they grew up and the struggles of living in a small town. And it was just a sweet little book, a little bit spicy but not really anything crazy, and overall I enjoyed it. I'd say it's about a 3.5 star for me. I would definitely pick up other books from the author based on this book. So I enjoyed it. I just didn't think it was anything spectacular, but overall I thought it was a good book. The next one I have here is Funny Story by Emily Henry. I gave this one 5 stars. I've been reading a few books by Emily Henry recently, and this was definitely, I would say, one of my favorite books I picked up from her. The other ones I think I've rated like 3 or 4 stars. And this one, essentially, Daphne and Miles are both in these separate relationships, and then Daphne's fiance and Miles' girlfriend were like best friends growing up, and they wind up deciding on his bachelor night that they want to be together. So both Daphne and Miles are kind of left in the lurch. Daphne winds up moving in with Miles because she no longer has anywhere to live, and he doesn't have anyone splitting his rent, so just it makes sense in terms of logistics. And so it's them navigating their grief, and he is trying to convince her that she should stay and not leave this town she moved to for her fiance because of her fiance, and uproot her life again. And this is just kind of, I guess, a slower burn romance. There are definitely some romantic kind of physical elements to it. So again, a little bit of spice, but just kind of your typical romance, nothing too crazy. And I really loved the character Miles and how they portrayed him and just kind of how he came across in the book. I really enjoyed this book. Again, 5 stars. And if you haven't read anything from Emily Henry, her style is pretty much like cute romance kind of stories. They're pretty easy reads, nothing too crazy in terms of the plot or the storyline or anything like that. The next book I read is called It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. There's a movie out for this, so most people have probably heard of this. I gave this 5 stars. I thought this was a really well done book in terms of the heavy topics. There are definitely themes of domestic violence, both with how the main character Lily grew up and what she navigated kind of with her parents, and then also in her new relationship. And it really kind of takes you through the dynamics of when you're in a relationship and you're so in love with somebody and everything kind of feels perfect, and then some physical violence kind of occurs, and trying to reason that with yourself. Do you stay? Do you go? It feels like such a small blip in terms of, like, 5 seconds, a minute within your relationship, but just navigating that kind of stay or go decision and the type of life that you want to lead, and being in love with this person and having so many perfect moments, but also there's this kind of dark underbelly to the relationship, and then also the potential that it could get worse, but not really knowing if it's like a once-off or anything like that. So that was a really powerful book, but definitely trigger warnings there for the domestic violence side of things. And then the last book that I listened to was called Neon Gods. It's by Katie Robert. I think this is a fairly well-known series. I haven't read anything from her before. I gave this one 4 stars. This is a first book in a series, and I am currently listening to the second book in the series, so I definitely enjoyed it enough to continue reading through. And essentially it's following kind of the different gods. So the main characters in this one are Persephone and Hades. Persephone was surprised by Zeus at a party, in terms of him proposing to her in front of everyone and not really being in a position to be able to say no without causing major backlash. And then she winds up running away, and she crosses the bridge into kind of Hades' land. And where she lives, they're essentially saying that Hades is just a myth and doesn't really exist. And then she kind of runs straight into his arms. And then there's Zeus and her mother are trying to get her to come back. And it's a pretty good story. This is definitely more of a spicy story, so I would definitely look at like the trigger warnings and stuff if you're thinking about looking into this series. But it's very spicy overall, and I would say like there's like voyeurism and things along that nature. So definitely look it up before you kind of just go in blind. But I think it's pretty well written, and it's interesting that it's kind of a series, and it looks like you're going to go through kind of all of the characters. So I really enjoyed that one. Like I said, 4 stars. And that is the 5 books that I read this week. In terms of my favorites, the 2 5 stars that I had were Funny Story and It Ends With Us, and I think those are both great. They were definitely very different kind of themes in terms of one being heavier and one being a little bit lighter, but still kind of navigating that turmoil and trauma. I would say of the 2, It Ends With Us was probably my top book for this week, and really enjoyed it. And I do want to see the movie. I haven't watched it yet, but I like to kind of read the books first just to kind of get my own idea of characters and the story and all of that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know what you're reading currently in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, if you could give it a like, if you could subscribe to my channel, and you'll be notified every time I upload a video if you hit that notification bell. Thank you. Have a beautiful day.